you're welcome back to my channel. This is Seam and Stitches. On today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to draft a pattern for a palazzo trouser. Alright, trust me, this is one of the easiest methods we know on how to draft a trouser pattern. So on your pattern paper, you mark 1 inch, which is going to be your starting point. That is your waistline. You mark it all across your paper, and then you take your waist to hip measurement, whatever you have as your waist to hip measurement, you mark it across your paper as well, and you join the lines together. The next thing you want to do now is to mark your crotch measurement. So your crotch measurement is usually 1 inch after your waist to hip measurement. So you can as well take the measurement as it is in that picture. So that is how to take your crotch measurement, and then you mark it. The next thing you do now is to mark your lap measurement. So the next measurement now is going to be where you're going to place your lap measurement on. So this is 3 inches after your crotch measurement. So on your crotch line, you mark 3 inches. That's going to be your thigh or your lap line. Next thing, you take your knee length measurement, whatever you have as your waist to your knee, you mark it all across your paper, and you connect the lines together as well. Then next thing, you go on and mark the full length of your trouser. So I had to join an extension to my paper because the length is long. So the full length of your trouser, you mark it out, and then you add your seam allowances. So I'm adding 3 inches seam allowance for hemming, so it's just going to help me that way. Then you go ahead and label your pattern for easy access when you are marking out the round measurements. Alright, so on your hip line, you take your hip measurements divided by 4. So whatever you have as your hip divided by 4, you mark it, and then you add your allowance for sewing. I added just 1 inch for my seam allowance. So you add 1.1 inch to your seam allowance as your seam allowance to your hip divided by 4. So you are going to be marking this on the crotch line as well and on the waistline. So you're going to be marking it all across the 3 lines that I just mentioned, and you connect it together as a straight line. So this is going to be the middle of your front measurement, your front trouser. So this is going to be the middle. Make sure you connect the lines together. It is very important. Alright, so the next thing you want to do now is to locate the midpoint of your pattern, of the whole pattern you're making. So what you do is, this box that you've just created, this hip line that you have divided by 4 with your seam allowance, you're going to mark half of it. Whatever you have as your hip divided by 4 plus seam allowance, you mark half of it. So that's half is going to indicate the midpoint of your pattern. So whatever you're going to be adding on the right, on the left, this middle is going to be what will dictate how you're going to be shaping out your pattern. So you indicate the middle of your pattern, of your trouser pattern. So I marked mine, as you can see there. Sad pieces. are going to be marking the crotch. Now look carefully. You see that box that you have there, the middle of the pattern that you have? We are going to be dividing it by 2. You can see what I'm doing. You place your measuring tape there, and then you look for half of it. Whatever you have there, you are going to divide by 2. So let's assume that I have 6 inches. Divided by 2 will give me 3. That is what you're going to be using as the extension of your crotch. Next thing, you mark your waistline, and that is going to be from the middle of your trouser. So you mark your waistline, whatever you have as your waistline, you mark it. And then you connect that waist measurement to your hip line, just like I'm doing it. You can use a curved ruler to bring out the shape of your hip. And then you connect your crotch extension to the middle part of your trouser. After this, you take your lap measurement and divide by 2, and you mark it on that lap line. So whatever you have as your lap divided by 2, you mark it out there. Then you connect it together with your crotch. You can see what I'm doing there. You connect the 2 together. Okay, so because this is a palazzo trouser, so I didn't measure the knee roundness or the calf or the other measurements for trouser. I just went on with my lap measurements. The lap divided by 4 plus my seam allowance. I just went on because I wanted to have a bogus effect. Know how a palazzo trouser is. So that is what I did here. So I went on to take my lap divided by 2 plus 1 inch seam allowance. I measured it on the knee line, and I also measured it on the length of my trouser. So I just connected it together with my crouch measurement. I made it go all the way like that. So if you are going to be making a fitted trouser or a boot cut, there's another way to do that. I'm going to be explaining later on. So just understand, this is how to take a palazzo. So for the zipper area of your trouser, this is what you do. You measure 4 inches from the waist extension line, and then right about where your crotch line is connecting to the middle point of your waistline, you're going to be marking it as well. So your 4 inches will extend and stop there. You can see where the curve is. That is where you stop. But for me, I'm not going to be adding this to this because these zippers are going to be at the side. So I'm not putting it at the front. I'm putting it between the seam line at the side. So but if you are going to put it at the front, this is how you do it. So I'm going to make a separate video on how to attach zippers on the zipper placket on your trouser at the front. It is very easy as well. So the next thing you want to do now is to mark your pattern for the back. So just to make our work easier, I'm going to just go through straight to the point. So what you do now, from the top of your pattern, you measure 4 inches before your waistline. So you know earlier on for the front we marked just 1 inch, but for the back we are marking 4 inches before the waistline. You're going to know that later. So you mark your waistline. So on that waistline, you go ahead and place your front pattern on your paper. So after placing the front pattern on your new back paper, you're going to use your tracing wheel to trace out all the lines that you have. All the lines that you have on this front pattern, you trace it out like you're going to be replicating it on the new paper. So this is going to guide us while drafting the back pattern. So with your marker, you trace out what your tracing wheel has marked on the new pattern. You see the line to be tiny. Just use your marker to follow the line, and there we have the front pattern on the new paper. So now we can go ahead and mark out the back pattern. So now I want you to pay attention to this. We are going to be marking out the back crotch now. So on that crotch line for the front, you are going to come down by ½ inch you come down by ½ inch, you mark that ½ inch point, and on that ½ inch you mark an extension of 2 inches. 2 inches, you come down by ½ inch, and on that ½ inch you mark crotch extension of 2 inches. That is going to be your crotch line for your back. So that is where your crotch line for your back will start, and then it's going to connect onto the waist. So you move to your waistline. Now at the middle point of your waistline, you know, I told you this line that you have here is the center of your front part of your front pattern for your trouser. So you're going to come in by 2 inches. That your 2 inches that you marked on the waistline, on the crotch line, you come in by 2 inches. On that 2 inches line, you are going to be extending it by another 2 inches. You are going to be extending it by another 2 inches. The reason for this is the waist for the back is usually higher than the waist for the front. That is what we are doing now. So you are raising up the waistline for the back. So you mark that 2 inches from you mark the 2 inches on the waist, and then you go up by another 2 inches. So you're going to be connecting these 2 inches that you just marked, you're going to be connecting it to your crotch line. Now these 2 inches that you just marked is your new waistline. That's going to be the waistline for your back. So it is on this line that you're going to be marking the waist measurement for the back pattern. Right about there, you're going to be adding 1 inch to your round measurement now. So on that lap line you add 1 inch, on the knee line you add 1 inch, and at the base of your length you also add 1 inch. Now normally it's supposed to be 2 inches, but because this is a palazzo and it's already big, I already have the size that I want for this, so I'm just adding 1 inch extra. So normally it's supposed to be 2 inches. So if you are making a straight pant or a boot cut, you can add your 2 inches, but for this I'm adding just 1 inch. So after that, I'm going to be connecting that 1 inch line, which is going to be the line for my back trouser. So I'm going to be adding it up to my crotch extension that I have here, the new crotch line that I have for my back pattern. I'll connect it together to give me that shape of a trouser. And with that, we are good to go. Now you can go ahead and cut your pattern. You are safe to cut it out now, and that is all. Very simple and easy to make. Alright guys, I hope you find this tutorial helpful. Kindly like this video, comment and share. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Bye.